Oh. Okay, everybody. So, 10:01, let's give everybody a minute or two to join in, and we'll go ahead and get started. Just as a note to everybody, we are recording this, so if you have to jump off or if you have somebody else that needs to be on, they can take a look at the recording later. And Kathy, morning, Rick, Josh.
Morning. I'm between flights, so I'll be on mute most of the time. So you should smile, Rob.
Oh, come on, Rick. Where's your daughter today?
The shipyard, where she always is, building New Jersey.
Yeah, good for you.
We have Ann on, Rick, so we're happy.
Yeah, if I get bounced off, she's a good vice chair. She'll cover for me.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Actually, I'm on my way to Omaha for their industry day, so I'm on SAME business anyhow.
Looks like a great event. I think
Hey, Rob,
Rob
this is Ann Avey. I was just wondering while we're waiting, is this an annual training that you do, or is this called just kind of a one-off?
Well, we are gonna do it annually, and next year what we'll do is we'll do a better job of doing this at the board meeting at JETSI.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll probably offer it again subsequent to that, just for anybody that may not be able to attend. But yeah, we in hindsight, we realize that we could have done some things more efficiently. So we're trying to kind of clean up the project site here. But next year we'll do, more than likely, we'll do one session at JETSI. And then we'll do another, later on, a week or two later, just to make sure everybody's got an opportunity to attend.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for the COI chair training. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a second. And so Ben Matthews is with us, and he'll give us a couple of words to introduce. So, Ben?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. As you mentioned, we kind of had the opportunity to do this at JTC. I was enjoying, seeing a lot of familiar faces, and again on this call right here, it's good to see some of those. It looks like between these two sessions, Rob, I think we have a good coverage, at least making sure that everyone's knowing where we're going, knowing some of the main goals that we have as a society. For those that didn't make it to JTC, National President now, Charlie Parham, really is focusing on, people finding the value and being the value. So for our communities of interest, especially on my side with helping the technical communities of interest, Mike Darrow is the National Vice President over the human capital side. We're working to, really allow our members, our society, to help find the value. You guys as COI chairs are really the linchpin for that, relationships with the posts, relationships with the members, what you've already done for many of your communities, building a very strong community at the national level. So I think the opportunity for this, Rob, to get everyone on the same page, to understand the expectations, especially around the resource request and making sure that National can support your missions of the respective COIs. That's kind of what this is about. In my initial conversations with the technical chairs, I wanted to make sure that we're supporting you as much as we can from a national perspective. And the other piece is, sharing lessons learned across our COI. So trying to make sure that as environmental is going strong, some of the lessons learned that they've had is being shared, the resilience or being shared with the architectural practice community of interest. So that's kind of my piece, Rob. I really appreciate the opportunity to join and listen in and kind of identify some of those hot buttons across the board. And again, really appreciate you setting this up and the team joining. So thanks, Rob.
Hey, thanks, Ben, and thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and thanks for your words. And we'll go ahead and get started. Let me share screen here. Can everybody see the slide deck? Everybody good, hopefully?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, great. Well, thanks everybody again for joining today's training. We will go, it's about an hour long, depending upon how many questions, and please ask questions as we go. It's meant to, I know it's going to seem a lot like I'm doing a lot of talking, but please jump in and ask questions. I'd ask Janine to kind of keep an eye on the chat for any questions or any hand raises if I blow right past them. So I appreciate that help from her. And we'll go ahead and get started. So again, thanks everybody for being on here. So a couple of things. I got to fix something here. Hang on here. This is what we're going to go over today. So we'll talk about, I'm not going to read it to you. We'll go over it all, but just wanted to give you an idea. We're going to do a number of things here. As Ben mentioned, one of the most important things is the COI work plan, which I think most everybody has a handle on the work plan, but we want to make crystal clear, the resource request and answer any questions that you may have on the resource request. Okay. Future calls, you see are laid out there. So we'll have them essentially there on the second Wednesday of the quarter, second Wednesday of the first month of the quarter, or the last month of the quarter. And we'll try to keep that convention unless there's something that stops us from doing that. After this call, I will send everybody out, the chairs and deputy chairs, co-chairs, or vice chairs. I will send this out as a meeting request for all of you, so you don't have to add these to your calendar yourself. They'll be on your calendar if you accept that. Okay. Webinar Wednesdays. Been a lot of talk about Webinar Wednesdays and the quarterly calls for a while now. We wanted to get we wanted to launch Webinar Wednesdays for a lot of reasons. So number one is it sets a battle rhythm, right? So everybody is expecting an SAME webinar on a Wednesday. It's a set schedule for the entire year. So you'll know based on this schedule, which is attached to your meeting notice in detail. I'll also show you a slide, but that's more of an eye chart to get you an idea. So you'll know a year in advance of the different Wednesdays that you as your COI or task force may have assigned. Again, it's to create a rhythm so that people come to expect Webinar Wednesdays. We did, believe it or not, it may not look like it, but it was our attempt at coming out with relatively regular dates for the COIs. We did take into consider conferences and taking out the week of JETC, taking out the week of SBC, and there's holidays that affect. I don't think anybody wants to do a webinar the Wednesday before Thanksgiving or attend a webinar the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, so that date got crossed out. But in general, COIs have 2, 3, or 4 dates a year, and they are relatively regular on how they work. And the Wednesday of the month of the quarter is tried to stay consistent. You can see here's how the numbers and how they shake out. We have 3 open dates, not really relevant. Just wanted to make sure that everybody had an idea of how it distributes. And you can see here the interruptions as well to the normal. So for instance, APCOI would normally have 4, but they have 1 interruption for SBC for that Wednesday. Then you can see these others are holidays and JETC, and then you have holidays down here for Thanksgiving week and Christmas week, or between Christmas and New Year's. Okay. We have kind of primed the pump with the conference non-select lists of presenters. We think we get constant requests from presenters on, hey, I know I'm a non-select. Thanks very much for the opportunity. Is there any way that I can get my message out to your membership? So we will provide you with the list of non-select topics and presenters after the SBC process and after JETC as well. So we will send you those lists, and hopefully that provides a well that you can draw from of topics for your webinars. And we start on July 12th. So here is the schedule, not so much to go over. necessarily, but it is attached to your meeting request. But this kind of gives you an idea how it works. Like, for instance, the Resilience COI is the first Wednesday of the quarter, and you can see how it follows through. And we try to do that with everybody else, but I like, you can tell I'm an old construction guy or engineering kind of guy. I like charts, so this seems like it was a simple thing to sit down and do, but to make sure that everybody had as equitable as possible, it was actually kind of interesting to put together. So thank you, everybody, for putting your webinars together. We want to make sure that with all the effort that not only you go through as the producers, because the COI is really the producer, but your presenters go through. We want to make sure that we get you the best opportunity to have the most attendees and participants as possible in your webinars. Rick has a question. I'll go to Ben first, and then I'll answer Rick's question. Ben?
Rick's got limited availability on the plane. I'll go to him first.
Gotcha. So Rick's question is, what if a potential speaker can't do an assigned spot or Wednesday? These are not the only webinars that you can do. Should have made that clear. I did not. My apologies. Thanks, Rick, for the question. You can do more than these number of webinars. So for instance, Rick is environmental and Ann is environmental. So they have what? Environmental has 4. If they want to do 5 or 6, they can have those presenters that can't do a particular Wednesday or a Wednesday. They can add those to their schedule. And Rick has another situation where he has an IGE project that specifically one of their goals or one of their actions within that IGE is to present webinars. These could be either as a part of this, the 4 that are scheduled, or they could be in addition to the 4 that are scheduled. Did that answer your question, Rick? Rick's typing.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And actually, you answered the second question I was going to ask about the IGE. So I guess we just have to see how this works with flexibility.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And everybody will ride this for a year, and we'll see how this goes, and we'll revisit it a quarter out from the end of the year, and we'll decide what we want to do the next year. But thank you for your support on this, and sorry it took so long to get the schedule out to y'all.
So my question, real quick, in regards to that year time frame, was how does this relate to the efforts for the Speakers Bureau? As I see some of that ramping up in parallel.
Yeah, Ben, that's a great question. So the COI managers may not be aware that as one of our LDP projects, our UPIC projects, we had a group of people do a Speakers Bureau and really get started on creating a Speakers Bureau. And that would definitely be a source for speakers for your webinars. And how it works is they have people that volunteer, and then they curate that list, and then topics, specialties that those people have and are willing to chat with you about. So for instance, if your COI wants to have a webinar, I'll keep using Rick and Ann as an example of PFAS. There'll be a listing of PFAS experts in addition to going to Rick or Ann and asking what expertise that they may have within their COI. So that's really is, 2 great sources of speakers are, within your COIs or other COIs, and then that Speakers Bureau. And there'll be more about the Speakers Bureau as it continues to mature, and we'll make that available to everybody so they can have access to it. So thanks for the question, Ben. Okay, a couple of last notes on webinars. So you can see the blackout dates. Nothing changes on the form. The link is included here. And then we would again request that we get those COI or the COI webinar request forms in 4 to 6 weeks. So one of the things that does for us is it allows us to focus the marketing. That's also one of the efforts of going to Webinar Wednesdays, is the marketing department will be cranking up all the different SAME channels and focusing those efforts. If we get the topics 4 to 6 weeks out, it allows us to hit several more of those channels than we would normally get an opportunity. We could produce a webinar on a couple days notice. We can do a webinar on a day or two notice if we really wanted to, but that won't get you the maximum number of participants that you would be looking for. So this 4 to 6 weeks really has more to do with maximizing the time that we have for the marketing department, communications and marketing, to do their business and get you the most exposure to your webinars as possible. Okay. And the form hasn't changed. Okay, COI work plans and resource requests. Number one reason we wanted to have this meeting to clarify and to get you all the information that may be necessary for you to complete that. We really don't see any there's no significant changes or no changes really to the COI work plan at all, nor the submission. You can see the link there to the template. Most of you have already turned in, most or all of you have already turned in a draft in accordance with the governance schedule. And the one thing I would add is make sure that you include your IGE efforts on that. So if you have an IGE project, for instance, or upcoming IGE projects or proposed IGE projects, please include those. But the big change is, and this is a change again from last year, is the resource request process has changed. Last year, it was a resource request specifically to the foundation. That is no more. There is a record, or the resource request is synced up with the submission of your COI work plan, and obviously works in concert with your COI work plan. Any currently supported programs like LDP or the Camp Mentors, they need to reapply for that support. Okay, so it does not, if you get support, if one of your programs gets support, you need to apply for a renewal of that support and any modified or changes to the resources or amount of resources that you may need. The foundation will no longer consider specific programs. So how this works now is the foundation will provide the society with an amount of money. This year, it was about $180,000, give or take, similar to what it was last year. The society, through a process which I'll share with you, will determine which programs receive, number one, support, number two, where that support will come from. So there are going to be programs that, and I'll go into the process here in a second, that the society decides that we are going to support this program, and the funding is normal SAME budget. Okay, the money does not come, for instance, from the foundation. There's going to be other programs that are supported by foundation monies, and I'll explain in a second why that is a differentiation that will be made from time to time. The foundation will provide us with that amount about the 15th of October. They'll tell us how much they intend to invest with or grant the society for the next fiscal year. And then those requests, those resource requests, in conjunction with the foundation monies, the foundation grant will be taken into account as part of the budgeting process, the society budgeting process, and ultimately that final list of efforts or projects or programs that are supported through these resource requests will be approved as a part of the society's governance process and budget approval process, which ultimately results in the XC approving the society budget for the next year. So let me go into the resource request itself, and I'll talk a little bit about the process as well, and why it works the way it does, and why the timing is the way it is. So the resource request form is also attached to your meeting request. Requester, program support, support description, outcomes and impacts are critical. This form, and let me share with you. I'm not going to say necessarily that these are out of order, but there is an entity that you need to be aware of. This form gets reviewed by the Ranking and Review Committee. So that is a committee made up of the immediate past president, a COI chair named by the president, and can't think of the other member. And they review all the resource requests that come in, and they give them a ranking and a priority, and then they present that to the XC for review and ultimately approval through the process. So this gets reviewed by a separate committee from the XC, and with that makeup that I shared. And that's why this information is so important. So the outcomes and the impacts, what do you expect from the program to do? So what impact do you expect your program to have? Is it going to support STEM outreach? Is it going to do camp mentors? Is it going to work on an education program? Whatever that might be, what is the impact that your program that you're proposing receive resources? What is the impact going to be? What are the measurements? How are you going to measure success of your program? And then support type. It's easy to say, hey, this is just for dollars. It's not just for dollars. This is for any kind of resource that you may need. For instance, dollars, of course, if you need funding to go do a particular effort within your work plan, you need to tell us how much it's going to cost. In general, give us a rough budget of what that's going to take and a rough breakdown of what that budget entails. It could be work hours. You may say, you know what, I need 6 mentors from the Academy of Fellows to go do this. Put that on there, because the ranking and review committee will take that into account when they're reviewing this, and then anything else that you can think of. If you have any questions about this, talk to your COI managers and/or give me a holler, and we can help put this together for you so that it's ready to go for the ranking and review committee. The budget, like I talked about, budget for those resources that you're requesting, and then when you're going to need those monies. So you may say, hey, I need them at the beginning, I need them in January. January 1st, I need $10,000, whatever it might be. I need 6 things. It could be a number of different times during the year. Or you may say, hey, my program ramps up during the year, and on March 1st, I need this much. On June 1st, I need this much, and I need the remaining for the 4th quarter at the beginning of September, for instance. So give us an idea of when and how much of those resources you're going to need. Ben?
Can you speak to how many of these you've received in the past? I mean, we have upwards of 15 COIs now, and my initial gut should say everyone should submit one and make it a hard decision for this ranking and review committee. But I don't know if you can kind of share about how many you've received in the past.
Yeah, we sure can. The last 2 years, the first year we received 6 in a very abbreviated format, and then the last year we received 3. And this year we haven't received any, but we've got an inkling that we're going to see 4 or 5 for sure, and maybe more.
Thanks. Yeah, I would just encourage the group, for those on the line, that this is an opportunity to further your mission with other people's resources. Obviously, you have your time and commitments of your community leaders, but this is a way to kind of have a force multiplier of that situation.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate that. Okay, ranking and review committee. Should have probably put this a little bit sooner so I could have explained where all this goes. Ranking and review committee prioritizes the request and then submits that to the XC for review initially, and then approval, the society budget, final approval in December, and I'll kind of go over that process with you. Okay, so here is why it takes so long and why we need your resource requests here in June when you're not going to see any funding until the 1st of next year. And it's all has to do with one word. It's the governance cycle. There are several wickets that these requests have to go through, and they're all tied up between the society governance process, the foundation governance process, and how that works to get it in front of the different entities that have to review and ultimately approve. So you can see end of June, we need the work plans, or I'm sorry, end of June, we need the work plans and the resource request deadlines. They need to go into your appropriate VP for review. VPs review or get the requests. Then here's where the resource request prioritization happens. So, and initially the R2C or the review and ranking committee, our ranking and review committee meets during the month of July, before the end of the month of July, and they will create a ranked list for the XC to review as an initial look. The XC will provide any comments that they may have back to their ranking and review committee. And then the national office will inform the requesters of that review. So we will tell you, hey, didn't make the cut. Hey, you made the cut, but final approval is in December. So we'll give you an idea of how your resource request does after the XC meeting in August during PLW. No later than 15 October, the foundation will tell us how much funding they have. We'll meld that in with the society budgeting process, those monies in. And then the ranking and review committee will again reconvene to review the foundation's funding decision against the different requests, and then determine the final program funding recommendation to the XC. So that takes those two things into account, how much the foundation is going to grant the society, and then they will provide a final review and a final ranking to the XC. So the December XC, which is essentially a budget meeting, they will consider that final submission, and they will either approve, disapprove, whatever, and then we will give you a heads up of how you did for final approval for anybody that submitted right after the XC meeting. The final approved budget has been done. I'll tell you how it goes. So you can see it's a long process. There's a lot of wickets that have to go through. So I know it's difficult that we're asking you to essentially ask in June for monies or resources that you will not receive until the beginning of January. So I think you can understand, given the governance cycle, why it has to work like it does. Okay. If your COI or program receives foundation funding, we'll tell you that your program received foundation funding. I'll give you an example of LDP. If you are a recipient of foundation funding, you must submit a report detailing the impacts of your program no later than March 15th of the following year. So for instance, if you receive funding for fiscal year 2024, which starts on January 2024 and goes till December 31st, 2024, by March 15th of 2025, we will need your draft report on the impact that funding had. And then we have to compile that and submit a final report to the foundation of the impact of their money that they granted to the society and the impact that it created. And we have to submit that by the end of March. Okay, so we will tell you if this applies to you, and we will obviously help you through the process if needed. But you'll definitely know if you receive foundation funding and this is a requirement for you. Okay, Janine had a comment or a question?
Yeah, I did want to, talk about, the timeline in which we said that by July 1st, the budget needs to go into the vice chairs and all of that. During the month of June, trying to meet with your COI manager to review your work plan and also your resource requests. We're here to help you maximize the effectiveness of what you're putting forward, and to be another pair of eyeballs to make sure that it's worded in the way that we're trying to accomplish, especially with this change this year with the resource requests. That's one of the things that we're here to do with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Janine. And we are absolutely, if you have any questions on this or need any help to put this together, please get with us. We've got a couple of years of experience knowing what the ranking and review committee, well, we have 1 year of knowing what they're going to look for. We have a couple of years of what the foundation looks for. So we are happy to, we'd like to help you put those together so we meet that and get the resources that you need to execute your programs. And I will say one thing, and it may sound a little bit trite, but the bottom line is you don't get if you don't ask. So your COI manager, your RVP will give you guidance on, if you're asking for a bridge too far. I'm not going to say don't do it. I'm just saying let's work together to figure out what makes sense. But if you have an idea, let's please get it on the table. Talk to your COI, talk with your COI manager about that. We can facilitate additional calls with the RVP that may be, or the VP that would be over that, and help work through that to get you a good resource request that has the best chance. And the ranking and review committee is really excited about looking at a varied group of requests this year. So it's been a little bit limited. Last year was our first year doing it, but there were some pretty robust conversations about it too. So please, if you don't ask, you won't get. So don't automatically assume I won't get that. I would rather you assume the other way, and we'll work through it. Okay. So please don't err on the side of caution. Go the other way, and we'll work through it on the other side. Okay. Are there any questions on the resource request? Wow, awesome. Good. Okay. SBC, believe it or not, we are deep into the process of planning for SBC with the meetings team, with Ann and her team, and the programs team planning your small business conference. And with that comes this call for presentation, which has been open for quite a while, actually, at this point. We are going to be open for another about 2 weeks, June 12th, so Monday, 2 weeks from last Monday, the holiday. And then the submission selection will be the last couple of weeks of June. So notifications of presenters right after the 4th of July holiday. So this is a huge effort on everybody's part. We can't do it without you guys and the teams that you put together to help us review these abstracts. So like we asked for JETC, please be thinking about the presenter. Reach out to those presenters you'd like to see. We get the vast majority of the abstract submissions right before the deadline. So please don't say, well, it's only got 2 weeks to go. I'm not going to reach out to that presenter. If that's somebody you think would be a great presenter, would present something that's of value to the membership, please reach out to them and encourage them to submit. And then start lining up your review teams, and Bell and Karen will be in contact with you about putting that together. Again, you guys do the heavy lifting on this. We really appreciate the work that you do and being flexible during that last half of June so we can get these nailed down and give you guys the best possible program possible for SBC this year. So, and anything to add to that, just about SBC in general and anything that the COI managers may want to know about SBC?
Thanks, Rob. I don't think so. The only thing I may add is at JETC, we did have the micro session theater in the exhibit hall, which was those short 20-minute sessions. I think it was really well received. So we are planning to do that for SBC. So if you've got any thoughts for that, many times we go to the CFP sessions that didn't get selected if, it would be easily transferred into that little 20-minute segment. But any other thoughts on that are welcome.
Great. Thanks, Ann. Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, IGE project process. It's been frankly, it's been probably 2 years since we've talked about this very much. There is a process for getting a project approved and recognized as a national level IGE project. And let me give you the very quick and dirty on how that works. We're really excited this year about, we're getting three, for sure, three, maybe more, new IGE projects for consideration by the executive committee. So we're really excited about that. We have a couple that we finished. So it's kind of time to get some new projects up and on board. And the projects have been very successful in a number of different ways. Member activation, I think Rick can tell you great stories about what it's done for the environmental COI and what their PFAS project has done, as well as the alternative delivery method that Sal Najumi has been working on for quite a number of years, and the impact that that's having with most of our customers. And we're really excited about that. Well, it all starts with an idea, with an abstract, or either a problem or, as we call them, pressing issues. So first thing is we collect different pressing issues. If you have a topic that you think that SAME would be uniquely positioned to take on, and our membership would be uniquely positioned to take on, we would encourage you to submit a pressing issue abstract. And I've attached not only the IGE a pressing issue template for you, but we also have the IGE matrix for you as well, attached to your meeting request, or your meeting notice. Sorry, gosh. So submit a pressing issue abstract submission. Okay, that goes through a validation process. Number one thing is, how does it align with the strategic plan? So if your idea has to do with unicorns, probably not alignment with the strategic plan. It's probably not going to make it past that validation process. So everyone we get is rigidly in line with the strategic plan or supports the strategic plan. So we don't anticipate anything other than that. But you'll see the form. You can draw a very direct connection to the strategic plan and how that project supports the strategic plan. And you can see a couple of the criteria. Is it a national issue? It might be a regional issue. I'll give you an example. The SDV OSB project, which just wrapped up at the beginning of the year. It was about a 7-year project. It started at a post meeting, a large post meeting, said, hey, you know what? There is a problem with 2 different certification processes for service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And there were 2 processes. One was administered by the VA, one was administered by the SBA, one was self-validated, and the other one was validated by the agency. Okay, we realized very quickly that that was a national issue and had to be raised up to the region, to the national issue, along with the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. We were able to work that issue over a number of years and saw it through SAME providing advocacy and education for legislators and different people interested, different stakeholders in the issue, and the National Veteran-Owned Small Business Coalition doing the actual lobbying on the process. On 1 January this year, the final rules were implemented and started, and now we have one process administered by the SBA, and it is a certified process by them. So it's really a great process. It's going very well from all the reports that we've gotten. SAME was integral in making that happen. Okay, so that's an example of an issue that started at the regional level and ended up at the national level. Identify any external partners, for instance. And then it goes to the executive committee to get reviewed and ultimately ranked 1 to Z. The only reason we do the ranking is in case we get so many projects that we have to adjust, or we have to non-select projects because we don't have enough resources to properly pursue those projects. That might be an issue. Other than that, we don't anticipate in the short run any resource issues or the ranking really coming into play. But the XC ranks those, they discuss those projects, they may provide feedback back to the project team to modify their scope or to consider modifying their scope. but they ultimately get approved by the XC. And once they're approved by the XC, it goes from being a pressing issue to being an IGE project. And then we will work with your IGE project team to. So this is how it works. Just want to give you an idea that there is an approval process at the national level. Like I said, we're getting ready to push 3 new abstracts through the process right now. If you have an interest, I need those projects by in about a week. A week from Friday, I would need your project submissions by the 9th, I believe it is. I would need your abstracts if you want to be considered in this cycle to be ultimately approved by the XC in August. So if you have any great ideas, and there's a lot of them out there, again, kind of like the resource request, put it in. Love to consider it. Okay, and I will be happy to work with you on those abstracts to help through that process. Okay. Okay, here's the different responsibilities of the different entities involved. I won't go over that. That's part of your thing. Operationalizing COIs. So operationalizing the COIs, you've heard that term used a lot lately. There was a slide in the board meeting that discussed some talking points about operationalizing COIs. Okay, and that said, this is exactly what it says, strengthening the SME brand BOD meeting from the May 1st at JETSI. And these are the things that I talked about, operationalizing COIs. Hold the key in our ability to take the society members and expand access and new technical and leadership reaches. And then we all need to promote the involvement of more members in the COIs and fully leverage the unique breadth of technical and leadership diversity in SAME. When I talk to not only members, but I talk to the government, we're seen as a unique organization in that we can bring people together from different disciplines to address issues. And we really don't have to necessarily, we're not beholden to any particular constituency. So we have a unique position to do this. We wanted to talk a little bit about what operationalizing the COIs, what that really means. And we took this essentially right out of the COI operations manual. It says about what we wanted to encapsulate really what is really meant by, or the intent of operationalizing COIs. And the only thing I'm going to read here, because the rest of it you can read, but I will read: COIs in action, engage volunteer leaders to maximize benefit to SME members and the AEC community to create measurable beneficial impact. Okay, this is similar to the second bullet identifies what is commonly known, operationalizing your business. So this came right out of a Business 101, translate abstract concepts into measurable, accessible, repeatable, and an iterative process to grow beneficial impact. Okay, so it's the same thing we're trying to do with COIs. And then there's examples of what operationalizing your COIs look like. And again, this was right out of the COI operations manual. Just wanted to give you more of an idea, more to get your arms around on what operationalizing COIs, the term gets thrown around a lot, but was hoping to give you something that you could use as a point when you're having discussions with not only your COI members, but other members within the society. Okay, succession planning. Just wanted to touch on this very quickly, just to make sure everybody is clear. Chair serves 2-year term, can be extended. It is not automatic. Extensions are not automatic as the chair. They have to be pushed up through the VP over your COIs and then ultimately up to the president for approval. Okay, we would need those extensions sometime well before JETSI. So we can know that or earlier. So keep that in mind. If you would like to extend, that we would need to know sooner rather than later. We would strongly suggest that you have a vice chair that serves obviously when you're unavailable, but just as important that vice chair really be the chair-elect, the person out of your COI who you and your steering committee and rest of your COI would see as ultimately becoming the chair. We would also strongly recommend that you keep your immediate past chair. Don't let them walk away. Keep them as your immediate past chair for 6 months to a year afterwards, so you don't lose any of that continuity. And strongly encourage you to identify those positions by name. Questions on succession? I think this is pretty simple. I think everybody knows this, just wanted to reiterate it. Okay, staff liaison. Your staff liaison is your best friend. Okay, they really are. What your staff liaison is, you can see it there. There's many things that we are there to help you with, whatever that is. We are a part of your steering committee. We are members of your steering committee. Not necessarily voting members, but we are members of your steering committee. So we want to be involved in that so we can understand where you're taking your COI and where we may be of help. But you can see a number of things there that your staff liaison will be your point person for at the national office. So if you have any questions about anything that the national office can do for your COI or your steering committee, please reach out to your staff liaison and we will be happy to work with you to either action that particular item ourselves or get you to the right staff section within the national office to properly. Okay, any questions? Any questions? Can't believe. No questions? Ben, anything to add?
There's
I mean, I don't think so. I think that was a great presentation. I guess the one piece that came up in my mind, since I'm still fairly new pulling in, and you did have about 5 attachments, but potentially afterwards sending the link to that COI operations manual to the group. I know many already have it, but for me, I was going to have to try to chase it, and appreciate that. So thanks again for the great overview.
Sounds great. Thanks, Ben, for being on. Thanks, everybody, for being on. Thanks, Ann, for helping out. And again, if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, please reach out. The slide deck is also a part of your attachment. We'll get this recording posted somewhere and send you the link for that. So that'll be available to you. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are happy to help with anything that we can. Okay? Everybody have a great day. And thanks for participating.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Rob and staff. This makes a big difference as a COI chair.
Thanks a lot,
everybody.